Welcome to another episode of Mastering Cybersecurity, developed by baremetalcyber.com. Let's dive in. Cybersecurity frameworks give beginners a sturdy map for turning security goals into everyday actions that actually reduce risk. A framework explains what good looks like in plain terms, which helps teams organize work, track progress, and explain results to leadership. It differs from a single checklist because it connects strategy to practice, which keeps efforts focused on outcomes rather than scattered tasks. When organizations adopt a framework, they gain shared language, predictable processes, and reusable artifacts that simplify audits and decisions. This episode introduces widely used frameworks and shows how they guide scoping, gap analysis, roadmaps, and reporting with simple steps. By the end, frameworks should feel like practical tools that help you build security in a steady, reliable way. A cybersecurity framework is a structured model for managing security risks, which is not the same as a law or a technical standard. Laws require compliance by statute, while standards define detailed specifications that products or processes should meet. A framework weaves governance, risk, and control practices into a coherent system that people can understand and use every day. Governance means how decisions are directed and responsibilities are assigned across the organization, with clear accountability. Risk means the chance that a threat exploits a weakness and causes harm to confidentiality, integrity, or availability. Controls, policies, and procedures are the practical measures and written rules that people follow to keep that risk within acceptable levels. The National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST Cybersecurity Framework, CSF, offers a simple structure that beginners can navigate with confidence. Its 5 functions, identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover, describe the full life cycle of understanding assets, preventing problems, discovering events, handling incidents, and restoring normal operations. Profiles help an organization describe its current capabilities and its target state, which makes prioritization concrete and measurable. Implementation tiers describe how well practices are integrated into the business, from partial to adaptive, which guides improvement conversations. A small company might start by inventorying devices under Identify and enabling basic controls under Protect, then add monitoring under Detect. As maturity grows, incident handling under Respond and tested recovery under Recover round out a balanced program. The Center for Internet Security, CIS, Critical Security Controls, CSC, present a prioritized starting point that many small teams find immediately actionable. The controls emphasize fundamentals like knowing your hardware and software, managing vulnerabilities, and enforcing strong access and configuration practices. They are arranged so early actions create a foundation that supports later improvements without wasted effort. Because the controls map to other frameworks, progress made here can be communicated in NIST or ISO language when needed. This prioritization helps teams show early wins, which builds momentum and trust with stakeholders. Over time, the same controls can be deepened with monitoring, automation, and policy reinforcement to sustain the gains. Some frameworks arise from industry or assurance needs rather than pure guidance, which changes how they are applied and evaluated. The Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, PCI DSS, sets prescriptive requirements for protecting cardholder data within defined scope. The Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, security rule establishes safeguards for protected health information with flexibility based on size and complexity. Service Organization Control 2, SOC2, uses trust services criteria to evaluate controls for security and related principles through an independent attestation. These regimes can reference or align to broader frameworks while keeping their own evidence expectations. Understanding these relationships helps teams avoid duplicate work by mapping one set of controls to several obligations. Control Objectives for Information and Related Technologies, COBIT, focuses on governance and management of enterprise IT so that technology supports business goals. It clarifies who is accountable for outcomes, who is responsible for activities, and how processes are measured and improved. COBIT helps connect security to value by tying control objectives to stakeholder needs and performance metrics. When used with security frameworks, it strengthens decision-making because roles and reporting lines are explicit. That clarity reduces friction during planning, budgeting, and audits because evidence flows along known pathways. Governance discipline ensures security work is prioritized, monitored, and adjusted with the same rigor as other business functions. Choosing the right framework or combination starts with business goals, data types, and realistic team capacity. A startup handling card data might start with CIS controls for quick coverage while mapping necessary items to PCI DSS to meet obligations. A growing company seeking customer assurance could emphasize SOC2 while aligning practices to the NIST CSF for internal planning. An enterprise with global presence may prefer ISO/IEC 27001 to demonstrate a certified management system supported by NIST references for technical depth. The point is to right-size the approach so adoption is achievable and momentum is maintained. Better to implement a modest framework well than stretch and stall under an overly ambitious target. Scoping and asset inventory are the first practical steps that make any framework real and effective. Scoping defines which systems, data, locations, and processes are included, which prevents confusion and surprise findings later. An asset inventory lists hardware, software, data stores, and external services, which allows risks to be associated with actual things. With scope and inventory in hand, teams can map existing controls to relevant framework categories to see strengths and gaps. This mapping creates a baseline that avoids assumptions by tying claims to observable configurations, documents, and logs. The baseline then anchors discussions about priorities because everyone can see what exists and what is missing. A simple remediation roadmap turns identified gaps into a sequence of improvements that people can execute. Start by grouping gaps by risk so the most harmful issues are addressed before minor inconveniences. Assign clear owners, target dates, budgets, and acceptance criteria so progress becomes visible and verifiable across teams. Mix quick wins that lower exposure immediately with projects that build lasting capability, which keeps motivation high while strengthening foundations. Link each action to a framework category so reporting stays consistent and leadership understands why each step matters. Review the roadmap regularly to incorporate new findings, adjust priorities, and capture lessons learned for future cycles. Measuring and reporting progress keeps the program honest and aligned with outcomes rather than activity counts. Framework-aligned metrics describe whether important behaviors are happening, such as timely patching, complete backups, or tested recovery steps. Maturity ratings can summarize capability levels in each function or control family so trends are easy to track over time. Executive summaries translate technical signals into risk language, which helps decisions about funding, staffing, and acceptable exposure. Evidence like screenshots, tickets, change records, and sampled configurations supports those summaries, so confidence stays grounded in observable facts. Over time, consistent measurement turns framework adoption into predictable improvement rather than sporadic campaigns. Audits, certifications, and attestations evaluate whether controls are designed and operating as described, which depends on solid preparation. Typical evidence include documented policies, approved procedures, configuration exports, sampled logs, training records, and incident or change tickets that show real activity. A readiness review compares current practice to the criteria, which avoids surprises by finding issues early while there is time to fix them. The danger of audit-only thinking is doing just enough for a report without reducing real risk, which erodes trust and resilience. Framework discipline counters that risk because everyday practices produce the same evidence that auditors later review. When audits confirm sustained practice, certifications and attestations become byproducts of good operations rather than one-time events. Frameworks work best when embedded into daily routines, not presented as separate or temporary initiatives that fade after kickoff meetings. Teams that schedule recurring reviews of scope, risks, and metrics create a cadence that keeps improvements moving forward. Leaders who align incentives to framework outcomes reinforce the behaviors that reduce risk in measurable ways. Practitioners who document changes, capture screenshots, and record approvals create an evidence trail that proves controls truly operate. Vendors and partners who are brought into the same structure extend protection across the supply chain with shared expectations. The combined effect is a program that resists drift and remains responsive to new pressures and opportunities. As programs mature, frameworks help connect preventive controls with detection and response, so coverage becomes balanced rather than lopsided. Preventive measures like hardening, access control, and segmentation reduce the chance of successful attacks, which lowers overall exposure. Detection capabilities like logging and alerting ensure suspicious activity is seen early while evidence is still fresh. Response processes coordinate people and tools so incidents are contained quickly and communications remain clear and accurate. Recovery plans restore systems and data to trustworthy states while refining defenses based on real lessons. The framework's shared language keeps these moving parts synchronized through common categories, responsibilities, and expected artifacts. Framework adoption also benefits from mapping exercises that link different obligations into one practical control set. A control like multi-factor authentication can satisfy CIS priorities, support NIST functions, and appear in ISO Annex themes. By documenting those relationships, teams avoid duplicate work and keep evidence libraries organized by control rather than by audit. This approach reduces fatigue because each improvement advances several goals at once with clear traceability. It also helps during staff transitions because new team members can follow the map and find artifacts quickly. Over time, the mapped library becomes a teaching tool that speeds onboarding and supports consistent execution across projects. When circumstances change, frameworks provide a structured way to reassess without losing momentum or clarity about commitments. A merger, a new product line, or a regulatory update can prompt a scoped review of risks and controls. The same inventory, mapping, and roadmap steps apply, which keeps the program from improvising ad hoc responses. Leaders can evaluate trade-offs because impacts are described in shared terms, which simplifies prioritization and funding choices. Auditors and customers see continuity because adjustments are recorded against familiar categories and metrics. The result is agility that does not sacrifice transparency, which is essential for trust inside and outside the organization. In summary, cybersecurity frameworks provide common language, practical structure, and steady rhythms that turn intention into reliable protection. They help teams define scope, understand risks, choose controls, and prove results with evidence that stands up to review. They also support alignment with business goals through governance clarity and simple progress reporting that leaders can understand. Whether you start with CIS controls, the NIST CSF, or ISO/IEC 27001, the goal is consistent improvement anchored in real practice. A right-sized framework turns scattered efforts into a coherent system that gets stronger month after month. Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.